What tangibly do you feel like this means for Nate Oats if he can get this program to the Elite Eight?
Well, first off, it makes him arguably the best coach for the number of years he's put in. Nobody's put in the number Wimp has, but it would arguably make him the best coach in Alabama basketball history at that point.
Well, I want to stop right there. So you think a trip to the Elite Eight? This is only year 5. That would be 2 Sweet 16s and an Elite Eight in 4 tournaments that they've had in his 5 years there. You would think that would already put him in that discussion.
Yeah, because look what he's done with 2 SEC regular season and tournament championships, the clean sweep in 2 years there. And then you take this team, and by the way, it would be such a NCAA tournament thing that this team made it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. I don't think anybody, it's not Nate Oats, I think, would, if he was being honest, would say this is not my best team. And Alabama fans would say Mark Gottfried had better teams than the one that went to the Elite Eight. And Wimp would tell you, I had better teams than any of these guys. And I don't think anybody would argue that. I think Wimp had some of the best teams in Alabama history. It just didn't shake out to where they went to the Elite Eight. Mark Gottfried's team did. And by the way, that Mark Gottfried's team, the year they went, sort of reminds you of this team. I don't think anybody went into that tournament thinking that team was going to go to the Elite Eight, but that's the team that did it. So I think it would start, some people would disagree. Some people would say it was still Wimp. Some people would say, I don't think anybody says it's Mark Gottfried. I think it comes down to Wimp and eventually Nate Oats. Do you disagree? Do you not think it comes down at some point to Wimp or Nate Oats?
I think eventually it does. I don't know if we would be there quite yet with just a trip to the Elite Eight, but Wimp only won the SEC regular season 1 time, and Oats would now have won it twice, obviously. Wimp did win 5 SEC tournaments. Oats already has 2 of those. Wimp was never the overall number 1 seed. Nate Oats was that. Wimp never went to the Elite Eight. If Oats can win tomorrow night, he's in the Elite Eight. I mean, I think there's an argument to be had. I probably still say it's Wimp, but I say it's Wimp, but it's inevitable that it is going to be Oats at some point, that Wimp is only holding on to this title for a very short period of time. I don't foresee a scenario where Oats remains the coach at Alabama and he doesn't surpass, if he can make the Elite Eight or the Final Four, he doesn't surpass whatever Wimp has done there. I don't see that scenario as long as Oats stays as the head coach at Alabama, because even if he never makes the Elite Eight, heck, if he makes 6 Sweet 16s, that matches what Wimp has done. I just don't foresee a scenario where if he stays at Alabama, he doesn't eventually pass everything that Wimp has done to become the best coach at Alabama.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. But as I said yesterday, we don't have to choose. Wimp was great for what he did in his time, like Bear Bryant was great for what he did in his time. And then came Nick Saban. And, you hope Nate Oats can match and pass what Wimp does. It doesn't take away anything from what Wimp Sanderson did for Alabama basketball. There are fans that still go to the games in Tuscaloosa that just rave about the Plaid Palace and everything Wimp Sanderson did. Those were glory days of Alabama basketball. They were so much fun. And I will say this, just recently, do I think the SEC has gotten back to being as competitive as the SEC was back when Wimp was. He won that 1 SEC regular season when he was winning 5 SEC tournaments, the Wimp Invitational. I think the SEC was very competitive top to bottom back then. And just now do I think we're getting back to where the SEC is as competitive top to bottom as it was in Wimp's day, back in the day. Those were some glory days in SEC basketball. I feel like we're back into that now with just the diversity of programs that are winning championships.
You want me to give you a hidden benefit, and you may have been getting to this, and I apologize if I'm stepping on your toes here, but a hidden benefit of Nate Oats making it to the Elite Eight. And then if he's fortunate enough to advance past that, Alabama is, and make it to the Final Four, what a better time for Greg Byrne to go get in people's pockets for that arena. Like, look, this guy has committed to us long term. He's got an $18 million buyout. Michigan, Ohio State, Louisville all came open. We have kept him. We've got to live up to our end of the bargain right here. You just saw him play in the Elite Eight. You just saw him play in the Final Four. Now's the time we got to finish. We got to close the gap on this arena. I don't know that it would close the gap, but I think would never be a better time for Greg Byrne to go be getting in people's pockets if Alabama could somehow advance to the Elite Eight or the Final Four.
Okay, don't mishear me here, and don't misquote me, and Taylor, make sure we put the whole thing out here.
Okay, I'm going to be quiet. I'm just going to let you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not been told by Nate Oats this, and I have not been told by Greg Byrne this. I just believe that the new arena is a bigger deal to fans than it is to Nate Oats. And I think you've been hearing rumblings of the same thing, that Nate Oats is concerned about practice facilities, locker rooms, salaries for his coaches, NIL. And it's not as important to him as a lot of fans and maybe media people make it out to be, that Nate Oats is very comfortable in the here and now and winning basketball games. And at one point, I believe Alabama had to have a new arena to keep him. I really don't think that's the case. The closer I've gotten to this program in the last 2 years, I think Nate Oats is very comfortable in Coleman Coliseum as long as he's got a good NIL to work with and can recruit great coaches to be with him and have good facilities for them to be with. I don't think they necessarily have to have a huge new arena to keep Nate Oats in Tuscaloosa. We've seen that. You know, Greg Byrne's able, anytime he wants, it looks like, to go out and get more money and get this guy signed to a new contract with no shovel in the ground on a new arena. So I think Nate Oats is very committed to Alabama basketball with or without the new arena. And I will tell you, I'm getting to the point, and this is going to be so unpopular, I'm getting to the point where I would be okay with just a little redesign, to where you tell some big money people, we got to move your seats. And you come in and you redesign a little bit. The only thing wrong with Coleman Coliseum, Brown, the only thing is the students aren't where the students are at the best venues in college basketball. That's the only thing that separates it. I mean, the infrastructure is old and everything, but my God, when did they build Cameron Indoor, right? The fact that at Cameron Indoor, those students run all the way down and they are a big part of the basketball game. At Auburn, those students run all the way down. They're a big part of the basketball game, and it looks fantastic on television. A small redesign of Coleman Coliseum where you got the students running all the way down and they're a big part of the basketball game. I think that changes the way Coleman Coliseum looks totally. So I personally, if I was in charge of Alabama basketball, would focus more on keeping the NIL strong, which isn't a problem right now, keeping recruiting strong, keeping his salary strong, his assistant salary strong, the facilities, the practice facilities that they have, and all that strong. And if the arena comes, the arena comes. If not, let's just get the students, redesign Coleman Coliseum on the side of the court, and roll with what you got.
Well, I would say this now. He has brought it up on our show himself numerous times. So that is contrary to the actual arena. I mean, that's contrary to. But maybe he's moved on from that. I don't know. I mean, again, it does not appear to be something he's trying to leverage to stay at Alabama, because anytime, I mean, the last 2 years he's gotten a contract extension. And in both those contract extensions, he has made a commitment to Alabama in the size of his buyout, the buyout that it takes to take him away. That takes leverage off the table for him. I mean, he can't leverage jobs against Alabama with that size of a buyout. So, I mean, he has shown a commitment to Alabama. So maybe I don't think he's ever used the arena to say, if I don't get some promises on this new arena, I'm taking the Louisville job, or I'm taking the Ohio State job, or I'm taking the Michigan job. It doesn't appear that he's ever done that, because the last 2 years he's agreed to a contract extension before the season was even over.
Yeah, but if you and Reed and LT walked in one day and said, man, we need a new studio. And even if I didn't think we needed a new studio,
right,
but if you guys said we needed a new studio, I'd be like, anytime anybody asked me, I was like, yeah, we're working towards a new studio. Maybe that's the role Nate Oats is playing. Maybe, new arena would be, who doesn't want a new arena? But do you have to have it? I don't think you do. I do think at some point, and this will be unpopular too, with my media friends, some who are out here in Los Angeles with me, that section of Coleman Coliseum where the media sits,
right,
that is right there in the television camera. Every time you come to this end of the floor, you got to get those people the hell out of there. That's a dead looking part of the arena, and it's always in the shot at that end of the floor. You got to flip that somewhere else, move the media up to the rafters or somewhere else. You got to get them out of that shot and put some real human bodies in there, maybe some more students in that set. I don't know. but you got to move. That's a dead spot on television. It just doesn't look the same on television. So I think there's some cheaper aesthetics you could do to Coleman Coliseum than to build a whole new arena.
You got some people drafting with you here. Now, AM Golfer is right. NIL support is more important to Oats than a new arena. 100% agree with that. But I think he's been able to get the NIL support he desires. I mean, Alabama has shopped in the transfer portal, and they've gotten guys they've wanted. And maybe I'm just not aware of a guy that they have missed because of NIL that they had a legit shot at. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But it feels like when Oats is going in the portal, he's been able to convince guys to come to Tuscaloosa. Patrick says if you could get the students on top of the floor, it would be fine. I was going to try. Daniel says what makes Cameron great is precisely why a new arena is needed. You just can't reverse engineer Coleman that easily, he says. So I don't know. Zach says Coleman is fine. It's amazing with 15,000 people. They can make it work. Patrick says Jimmy Architect now on the show.
Yeah. Well, the first time I design something for horror construction will be the next time will be my first time.
That'll be your first project for them,
Yeah, but it seems to me like you could kick out some of those seats right behind where Chris Stewart and the gang sits, and then somehow build it on a different kind of slant to pack the students in right there. And maybe, you lose a few rows, lose a few of the capacity, and then sort of grade it up and get it to a section there to, a little cheaper. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.